Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stryd for the Love of Running webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about the Stryd Event Planner and Race Calculator. As always, my name is Evan, and today I am joined by Tom at Stryd. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Evan?
I'm great. So excited to catch up with you and talk through this pretty cool demo we have of a feature that we just released this week. Tom, can you tell us before we start, what exactly do you do at Stryd?
I program the iOS app and just help across mobile and watch in general. So your in-run experience and your post-run experience is primarily what I work on.
Awesome. And you have been on the podcast that we do before.
I have a couple times, yes.
I feel like that was like over a year ago or something like that. So you've
we did the podcast, and then I did another webinar at some point.
That's right. How is your running going? Just tell us about your progress and your love of running right now.
It's been interesting. So my running is going really well. I mean, I'm actually kind of using this like time of no races to kind of just like focus on the basics and build fitness and kind of accomplish some like more personal goals. Mm-hmm. So I've actually quite liked it because it gives a lot more flexibility, right? You can just you don't have a specific date. If you need a little bit more time, you can. If you need some off time, you can take some off time. So I've quite liked it. It's a little bit different, but I'm going with it.
Absolutely. And I feel like this specific feature set has been geared towards your own running as well. It's almost like a sort of selfish thing where this brand new feature can actually improve your running as well.
Yeah, and we'll see that a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to get into it. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Stryd Event Planner and Race Calculator release that we had earlier this week, and we're going to do some live demos again on the iOS side, and we'll also have a PowerCenter demo. And we'll look at my data as well as Tom's data. So I'm excited to get a little bit more variety on the show. So starting off, topics, we're going to talk about how to set your goal in the Stryd mobile app, learning how to translate your training into a finishing time for your next race, building confidence heading into race day before racing on an unfamiliar course, and then quickly and easily determining race power targets at variable distances. First part here is setting your goal in the Stryd mobile app. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but the iOS and Android are very, very, very similar, if not identical, in terms of the setup here. So if you're on iOS or Android, these instructions will be the same.
Yep.
Awesome. So first kind of general overview, this is just going to be a sort of static demo to start, and then Tom will give us a very, very cool interactive demo. Starting off, setting your goal in the Stryd mobile app. You'll start on the main screen. You'll see your My Training. Hopefully you have a little bit of variety there. You can notice my workout days have a lot of running stress score, and then I take ample recovery. You'll scroll down and you'll come to the upcoming events section, and it'll say upcoming events, add an upcoming race or time trial, and calculate your power target and estimated time. You'll click on the add event button, and it will bring you to this list here. You can create a custom course. You can upload a course. You can choose from verified courses. But for this just static example, we're going to look at creating just our own time trial event. So we're going to choose a custom distance. We get dropped into this 1 mile, 5K, 10K, half, full marathon. These are what we refer to as some of the classical race distances, but for this practical example, because it's something that I'm doing at the end of the month, we're going to choose a custom distance. We're going to select that as a 2K time trial, a 2 kilometer time trial, 5 laps on the track. After we change our units, so we can choose anything from miles, kilometers, meters. So no matter what really distance you're selecting, we can get super precise with it. Then you'll select the date. So for my event, I'm going to choose July 31st. And then I'll press save, or I'll go next. After that, it'll drop me in this menu where I can give it a name. So if I want to give it a really fun, festive, zesty name, I can choose that. Or if I want to be pretty bland and boring, I can just say 2K time trial. The date is July 31, 2020. Then I selected this initially as a priority event. After that, I have the option to either choose a course or add my surface type. So this is what we refer to as adding details. So I'll be running this on the track. And we have a lot of these options to be able to give you some choice and some specificity to the event that you're actually choosing. So after I press surface, I choose track here, and then I can also add things like elevation, the temperature, and the humidity. So this is really important for forecasting, but then also come actual race day, if all of a sudden you've had a really big swing in weather, or let's say you live at sea level and then you come all the way up to altitude, you really want to get a fine grain estimate as well as a power target. These more details are the things that are really critical to add in there. It'll give you a target power, and this will change absolutely based on the temperature, humidity, elevation, everything that you're adding in there. Then after you press save, after entering all that glorious information, it'll give you this card on the home screen. And this card, I think, is super motivating. Like we mentioned, it pops up on the home screen and it gives you a nice countdown. So it reminds you of when your date, or when the date of your race is, but also, or your time trial or event that you've created. But it'll also fluctuate over time. So if you start adding more data into the system, your recommended power can go up or down, your estimated time can go up or down. So this is really a dynamic way to view your event. And we hope that on the way to actually training for this specific event, that your recommended power does change, and pay attention to those changes and pay attention to the countdown. So I really, really love that feature. It really keeps you motivated. It gives you a reason, besides checking your My Training chart, besides checking your running stress balance gauge, besides checking your critical power history, and every time you run with Stryd, it really gives you a reason to keep up to date in the Stryd mobile app, which I think is a great reason to keep opening that every day and just tune in with that. So this is a really, really cool thing. Like I mentioned, we tagged this as an A priority event. So one last thing is talking about changing priorities. So if you choose it as an A, B, or C event, it'll show up with a slightly different image in the background. So please feel free to play around with that and change and see the different images that pop up there. We did have Ian Berman on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the importance of setting A, B, and C goals, but also having A, B, and C events. So not every race has to be a goal that it's a make or break. It's not the biggest race of the season, especially right now. If you have some minor time trials throughout the season, setting an A, B, and C goal can absolutely be something that will help you on the way to training and racing. So just knowing that you can change the priority and that there are little subtle differences in those race, like the image cards that pop up for those races or events, that is something to for sure check out. And then as always, if there's anything that we want to call out some information to, there'll be a little circle with an I in it that will give you more information about that specific use. So if you have any questions, we've tried to be very forthcoming with the answers and give you that information inside the app and the dialogue already there. So next thing to talk about here, and again, Tom is going to give us a full run through in a simulated version of the app in just a little bit, but let's talk about verified courses. So we currently have a handful of verified courses from the world majors to some larger marathons or one half marathon in New York City. But these are a slightly different functionality. When you load in, let's just say for this practical example, the Columbus Marathon will pop up. It'll lock the distance, and it'll lock the surface type and elevation. These are courses that we've gone out and validated already in terms of the data that the course is based off on. So this will lock all the considerations, and you'll still have the ability to change the temperature and the humidity. So not only is this important for forecasting, training at a certain level. So if you're targeting the Columbus Marathon and your buildup says marathon power, well, you don't have to guess. The event card literally shows you what the target power is. And this is something you can play around with. But then over time, it'll give you that constant reminder. But if it comes to race morning and all of a sudden it's 30 degrees, or all of a sudden it's 75 degrees Fahrenheit, or it's really, really humid or it's really, really not humid, it'll adjust that as well. So give you that most up-to-date power target. So let's go through a really quick practical example here. The Columbus Marathon was my first marathon that I ran in 2015. I can toggle between goal power and goal time, or target power and target time. So if I wanted to toggle the target time to 2:31:57, which is 1 second faster than my marathon debut time, I'd be able to easily flip it to 2:31:57 in the target time. Anytime I'm going outside of the recommendation, we'll have this bar down here that says use recommended power or use recommended time. So this is an easy way for you to experiment. It's an easy way for you to just see what is kind of on the edge of your abilities right now that the race power calculator thinks. So I think it's really fun to be able to just flip through the wheels, just say, okay, you know, what's my target? What's my goal? But then if I need to change it, I can absolutely just press that use recommended time. I don't have to try and memorize what the target time that it gave me was. Let's say, you know, I want to change it from this recommended 94% of my current critical power. You know, I change it to 2:31:57. We can see it's starting to approach this red side on the dial here. I want to break 2:30 at the Columbus Marathon. So I say 2:29:59, and it slightly goes over the edge there. I know that this is slightly outside of the zone that Stryd thinks that I'm capable of right now, and for my best chances, I should just switch it back to use recommended time, press done, and then I have the upcoming event on my schedule on my home screen, and I can page between the different events here. So, and I can also have the countdown. It just happens to be 100 days till what was supposed to be the Columbus Marathon day later this fall. So this is a great way to see if your target right now is just a little bit optimistic. And again, the estimated power and the target time will change. If you do use the target power that we give you over time, we'll analyze your fitness as it goes forward.
I will call something out here. So let's say like Evan does want to beat 2:30. So he chooses a time of 2:29:59, right? So right now that's red. But let's say he chooses that like and saves that as he improves his fitness, that might become into the green zone, right? Like as his CP goes up, as his running like effectiveness improves, he could like actually have that time be in the comfortable range.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't be afraid of choosing a time or choosing a target that's slightly outside of your current comfort zone, especially if your race is a few months out.
Totally. And this is, you know, kind of these use cases that are built in. We offer multiple uses. So if you do have a race that's 3, 4, 6 months away, a year away, something like that, we built that consideration in. But also if this weekend you just want to go and run a time trial on the track, we put that in there as well. So very, very flexible, very, very considerate for the different uses that people might be going through. So I believe that we're going to get a demo from Tom now. So we're going to go through some live data and we're going to be able to talk through some certain scenarios. Do we want to take questions really quick before we dive into the demo here?
Sure.
Okay, so we got 2 so far. First question's from Edgar. I guess the power recommended is the average for the whole event. What will the strategy be for real life? Warm up before, cool down after, use laps for warm up event, cool down, or just record the event? I feel like that is, I mean, that's definitely up to the person. The recommendation that we do have here is, and as we'll show on PowerCenter, there's a slightly different visualization too. We give you that sort of gauge to move between. This is the recommended power for the whole event. So the strategy for real life depends on who you are as a runner. We got this question earlier this week. If somebody actually did have a power target, what would be a recommended way for them to go and achieve on race day? I would say right now, you know, I use Garmin as a primary watch. I do use Apple Watch. So Tom, maybe you can give a slightly different answer about Apple Watch specifically. But for me, I would just open up the Stryd workout app on the Garmin 245 that I have, set the power at, 309 for my target. And then I would just run at 309. And I wouldn't necessarily try and go out too fast, try and go out too slow, positive split, negative split. I want to try and run as even to that power as possible because that's what I'm confident in. Going along with this, in training, if you set a goal for 3 months from now, and like I mentioned, you have your marathon power target, but before you head out the door for your marathon power workout, you check the projection and you say, okay, my marathon power target is this. I want to run at 100% of marathon projected marathon power. I'm going to do 4 times 10 minutes at that intensity with a 3-minute jog in between. That's a super easy use case to just go out the door, practice that. So then when it comes time for race day, you hit the target exactly because that's what you have been practicing. So everybody definitely has a different use case. I think when it comes to their maybe watch setup or their actual strategy come race day, but that is definitely what we recommend. Keeping an eye on the power targets and the power recommendation just to make sure that you have the potential for the best race possible for yourself.
I'll also add that so the nice thing about power is that it's independent of elevation, right? So let's say if you're running uphill, downhill, you just need to worry about your one power number. So whereas instead, if you were planning your race by pace, you would have to possibly have different pace targets for every split, like along the way, right? And so with power, you really do just need that one number and you should be good.
Yeah. And then answering like the second half of the question here, warm up before, cool down after, use laps for warm ups, event, cool down, or just record the event. Again, that totally comes down to you. For me personally, I like to record the warm up separately, record the event separately, record the cool down separately. If my legs feel good enough for a cool down, I have done a pretty insensible 5-mile cool down after a marathon I paced last year. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for a lot of people, but for this specific question, that definitely comes down to you as a runner. I would definitely say, Tom, what about Apple Watch? Let's say you have, we'll go through this sort of example in just a second, but when you get your race power target, what do you actually do come race day?
Yeah, so on Apple Watch, you can set a target power on the watch before you start your workout. And so that would be a good way to kind of stay right where you need to be. Mm-hmm. And you can set both kind of a window on each side of that. So whether it's 5 or 10 watts plus or minus. And then you can also, if you want, to have power alerts. So if you ever go outside of that range, you'll be alerted to either speed up or slow down,
right?
Along your race. And
if you want to choose up to 7 different metrics on 3 different screens to have a huge combination, yeah, you can absolutely do that. Cool.
I'm not sure I'd recommend that for a race, though. Just run.
So it's a little bit much if it comes down to race day. The beauty that we see and the thing that I prefer is if I'm running with Stryd, I really like looking at overall average or lap average. That's where I find success, where I can just focus and lock in on one number.
I find lap average really helpful because you don't have to worry as much about the minute like second to second differences.
Sure.
It's just kind of how you've been going over that mile, over that lap around the track, and I find it much easier to deal with.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, we looked at a couple of static images from the presentation. Let's actually get an interactive sort of demonstration here. That's a good total stress number for the past 7 days. A pretty good mileage there as well, Tom. So it looks like your training is going pretty well.
It is going well. Yeah. So this is my actual data. So I was thinking we could add a 5K time trial in a couple of weeks, which we had talked about me doing. So come down in the events, I'll click add event. And it's just going to be around the track. So I'll do a custom course and so 5K. And you can see it already is calculated the power. So my target power is 247 and it gives me an estimated time of 1909. First, so real quick, I'll give it a name. So just 5K time.
Let's give it a more fun,
more exciting
spicy, name. Spicy, extravagant name. What can you think of?
I'll let you come up with that.
Let's say I had a 5K fitness extravaganza.
Fitness extravaganza. Extravaganza? I'm not sure I've ever typed that word out. Extravaganza. There we go.
Awesome.
And then the date.
Yeah, what's the date?
We were going to have it be in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Oops. Okay, we'll leave it like that.
Sure.
And then
so
let's play around.
A priority, B priority, C priority?
So it'd probably be a B priority, I would guess.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yep. And then, so right now it's giving me a time of 1909. I'm kind of interested in what my power would have to be to break 19 minutes. So let's edit the target. I think this like screen share is like kind of messing up what I can tap. Let me try something real quick.
Working out bugs.
There we go. Working out bugs.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So time, let's do 1859. So you can actually see that's in the green. But that would be an estimated power of 259. So
and
plus or minus 5
plus
watts.
or minus. And then what if you go through and you change surface type or some of the other ones? Is that something that we can show right now?
Yeah, so the surface, let's say it's going to be on the track. And then, so this obviously is at elevation. We're in Boulder, Colorado. Let's say I went to like down to sea level. So change that all the way down to 0 feet. And in this case, it didn't update the estimated power because it didn't change the target time.
Right.
But now you can see that the target time is like well within my ability.
Right.
So let me go back to the target and just change that now to use recommended power. And it jumped all the way up to 260 watts.
Wow.
And in 1809. So it just kind of shows the effect of altitude on running.
Let's say you do go down to sea level, but then it's really hot and really humid.
So my average training temperature right now is at 62 degrees, which that seems about average, but say it's like a 90-degree day.
Yep. It's a dry heat. Well, this won't be a dry heat though.
This won't be a dry heat at sea level.
Yeah.
So now my target power dropped back down to 249. So it kind of shows you what magnitude kind of like elevation and temperature can have.
And let's let's play around with the humidity as well and just kind of shuffle things around a little bit.
So you can see how not humid it is here. Average of 36. And again, it dropped even more down to 234 watts.
Wow.
So I can perform better in Boulder, Colorado at 5,000 feet of elevation than I can at sea level in 90-degree heat with 100% humidity.
And now what if you just maybe see what is the top of your possible abilities in these conditions? So maybe let's go to editing the target power again and just kind of see. So
like my max is about 239, it says, but obviously it's a window from between 230 and 239. So it's hard to tell. Like I have no idea how I'd perform in humidity or this high heat, but I think this is a pretty good, like a pretty good marker.
Totally. And then going back to just the optimal conditions. Maybe let's look at the most optimal conditions come race day that you're actually gonna do.
So let's say I'm at like low humidity. Just go back and redo it. There we go. Let's say I'm at sea level. So let's say I do it like early in the morning. So it's 45 degrees. That's going to be hard in the summer, but let's just like say that.
A little brisk, but that's
so it doesn't change it that much.
Yeah.
And humidity is already pretty low. So this is probably about like the best I could do at the current moment.
And then we can add the track surface in there as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Track.
Awesome. So it looks like you could run, a minute faster, basically for 5K.
Yeah, and I think that, just like based on my running experience, this seems like it'd be doable. it is cool that I'm close to 18 and could possibly break that.
Well, yeah, because it gives you that plus or minus range.
Right.
Too. So the more data you do give, the better the confidence will be, from our side to give you that estimated time and those power targets too.
Yeah.
And so let's maybe save this event. Do we have to?
I'm just going to cancel it out.
Sure. Let's actually look at your breaking 3 here too,
Cool.
because this is interesting. You're right on the kind of corner of some sort of a milestone there.
Yeah. So my larger goal at the moment is breaking 3 hours in a marathon. So you can see I'm right there. I'm actually on the optimistic side. I'm below 3 hours. On the non-optimistic side, I'm so above it. Right. And this is already at sea level. Yeah, it's probably not the best idea to try to break 3 hours at altitude.
It's just as we saw for the 5K example, it's a little bit more difficult to do. So
so that's actually C. So this is what 3:01:49. If I go back to my training, so altitude, say I'm at 5,000 feet. Now it's 3:12:06, which is a pretty significant change.
Totally. Super cool. Well, yeah, let's maybe you want to reset that back, or if you cancel it out, it won't save it. What other things do you have to that are on your minds just talking through this sort of feature? Can you talk about the development process? Talk about how you envision the feature being used at the current moment.
Yeah, so I think it's good for different kinds of use cases. One, for example, my breaking 3 event, it is cool to see am I near my target, right? So obviously I want to be building my fitness and I want to see this estimated time drop below 3 hours. Ideally, it's comfortably below 3 hours. So this is cool just to kind of have this on my profile page, have it be constantly updating as my fitness updates, and just kind of have it as the bar that I want to reach. Right. I do think this is also cool just for I really hadn't been doing a lot of time trials. So before kind of this whole stay-at-homes period, right. But it's kind of the perfect time for that. And this is, I think, a really good way to kind of both just plan those, right? Let's say you don't have a coach, but you want to go see how you can perform in a mile or 5K. This is a really good kind of baseline of, okay, what do you think? What can I do? And what can I, what's a stretch goal? So I found that interesting just in terms of monitoring my training. And it does also, without having races, it gives you something to work toward and look forward to. Right. And I think for a lot of runners, that's super important to have kind of, you always have to have something on the schedule, right? Because it really does give a lot of meaning and purpose to why you're going out every day and running miles and miles.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have you learned anything or heard anything interesting from the people that have helped us test this over the development process?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to both hear how accurate it is based on I literally just ran a 5K last weekend and it's giving me it's estimating that time, right. Which I think is pretty cool. And then also again, having that goal to work toward. I think I find this very motivating in a way that it's hard. You have to find that motivation in running, right? And then I think it's, especially in this kind of weird time, that can be kind of hard. Right. And I think for me personally, this has been a very interesting addition to my training for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Super cool. We had one more question trickle in from Einar, I think. And the question is, let's say my dream time is slightly flagged as red. It would be amazing to get workout recommendations to move the power duration curve in the right way to make the dream time green. I think that's a great idea as well. So, the thing we kind of talked about here too is that this will adjust over time. It will constantly reflect your ability. And one thing that you absolutely can do, so for Tom's situation, is if Tom, you're going out for some threshold repeats, or you want to target marathon power specifically, goal marathon power specifically, 220 watts is that target for you right now. That's that recommended power.
Right.
So that's absolutely something that you can incorporate on your side, is being able to use that kind of feedback that you have right now in the app or on PowerCenter to be able to tell you, hey, this is what you should be kind of targeting and focusing on.
I have a question to Coach Evan. Let's say, right, so I'm at altitude right now. I'm at like 5,000 plus feet. So my target power is 220 watts, but that's at sea level.
Yes.
So if I run that here, it's going to be more effort, right?
Yes, correct.
Should I be running at 220 watts, or should I be running at like the equivalent effort?
Yeah, I think there's a place for both. So I can give a kind of concrete example. For me, my sea level marathon pace is right around my threshold at altitude. So I can practice running my marathon power and get the benefit of having that threshold stimulus at altitude specifically. And again, this is kind of our unique situation. I think, a very, very few percent of the global population lives at higher altitude for it to kind of matter. But for a lot of runners, funnily, it seems a lot of runners do brief stints, if not live at altitude too. So I think there's absolutely room for both. Practicing, if you're doing a longer sustained effort, going in that calculator and then looking at what your current altitude marathon power would be, your altitude half marathon power would be, and then using that number specifically. But then if the purpose is to practice that speed, which I think is very important specifically for athletes training at altitude, you kind of neglect, not speaking from personal experience or anything, neglecting that speed factor is a thing to keep in consideration, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Absolutely. That'll be $5 there for that nugget of coaching wisdom. Other question here is the predicted time suggestive of something that you can do at present, or is it showing potential? Also for custom distance, can you add elevation average? So right now, the predicted time is something you can do at the present. We definitely have grand ideas about developing all this stuff in the future, and people's feedback along the development process has been super, super important. It's been really, really key to making this release as great as it is. But we are absolutely not resting. We are definitely still working and considering different ideas. Tom, do you have any feedback for that specifically?
So just to clarify, it is your current fitness, right? Yes. It doesn't at all say, oh, your race is 2 months out, you should improve by this amount. It's at your current level of fitness. And so as you are training, and hopefully as your fitness is improving, you should see those numbers or your power numbers going up and your estimated times going down.
Totally. And then also for custom distance, can you add elevation average? I'm a tiny bit confused about the elevation average due to some people use the term interchangeably.
I would assume it means elevation gain.
Right. So for custom distance, not right now, but we will talk a little bit about that in just a second. And then the last question we have here, I heard Evan talk about tagging workouts for surfaces. My workouts are collected through my Garmin and fed into PowerCenter. On that path, I have not found a way to tag the surface of the workout.
I can show you how to do that.
Yeah. So Tom,
so it is in the mobile apps. If you go to your calendar, you can tap on the tag icon, and then you can tag the surface of your workout. So this morning run was on a trail. So the same place you tag the run type, your shoe, etc.
Absolutely. I think tagging is super critical. I think it's very good to get that basis of information, but I also like it because I go in and I check my running stress balance, I check my training chart. After each run, I'll go through and kind of do some cool analysis there. But I do think tagging is very important for that. Tom, anything else in the iOS app that we should check out while we're here about this release?
Let's see. I mean, one small thing is we show obviously your upcoming events are in the calendar, but we also mark like a little flag icon.
Mm-hmm.
You go in the calendar, so you can see like this is where I have my Breaking 3 event, and you can jump right there. Yeah, it's just like a small feature.
That's very cool. And then if you filter, it'll condense it down, I believe, correct?
Yep. So you can add a filter, and you can also there's a filter for events.
Nice.
So you can do like events only if you want to. And this was an event from a few weeks ago, and this is the Breaking 3 event.
Super cool. I love the feature, and I'm really excited to keep having the team add more to it. And we're really excited for people's feedback about stuff coming in the future.
Sure.
I think we'll switch gears and do a quick PowerCenter demonstration again. So I'll cue that up from my end. Thank you, Tom, so much for going through that. So this is, don't be fooled, this is not actually PowerCenter. This is actually PowerCenter. So you can find the new feature under the stryd.com/PowerCenter/tools, or you can click this bar here called Tools. One feature that I don't think a lot of people know is that you can click on the bar here and it'll actually expand it out. We can click on here. It'll bring us to the race calculator. So like Tom, I am an athlete training at altitude, and my stuff is going to default to the data that's being collected here. So I went through an example on Wednesday when we released this, and I thought it was kind of cool just to be able to play around. By default, this will load just optimum conditions, so a completely flat course, and we can start to play around with stuff. So let's say I'm trying to do the same thing as Tom. Right now, I'm gonna try and do a 5-kilometer track time trial, just at altitude still. My projected time right now is 15:59 plus or minus 20 seconds. Target power is 347 watts. Tom, why don't you give me a scenario and we can just kind of play around with stuff? Why don't you just toss some stuff at me?
So it's been really hot here lately.
It has. It has actually been warm.
Yeah, so let's say you're running this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh,
so right now it's 96 degrees here.
Okay, 96 degrees. What's the humidity at? Can we get a check on that?
It's probably very low, but let's see what's Boulder weather. 9% humidity.
9% humidity.
Yeah.
So let's see if the odds will be in my favor. It reduces performance a little bit. Let's say for some weird reason Boulder just became super duper humid and it turned to 90% humidity. We'd see that it drop all the way down to 307 watts. 1809 switching to 1809 versus my projected time right now. If we just reduce things back down to optimal conditions, 55% humidity, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, then we go back to 1559. So just squeaked under that 16-minute barrier. Give me another scenario just to quickly go through.
Let's see. I'm interested at like at sea level what you do.
Let's see. Sea level, change it, just keeping all the other things pretty equal. 1508. I'd feel pretty confident about that right now. Still plus or minus a little bit, but yeah, close to sub 15 at sea level. And again, this is in optimum conditions on track. Then let's say I went to the Bay Area. What's a normal temperature and humidity for the Bay Area, Tom?
It's almost always like in the 50s or 60s, really.
So yeah, let's leave it at 59. Degrees. Yeah, okay, 60 degrees, so one degree Fahrenheit up, and then racing out. What's the rate? Racing out humidity.
It's definitely more humid, maybe like 70% humidity.
Sure, that's what I mean. Yeah, reduces time by a little bit, but this is important. The other thing here to note is that I've selected this by power. So let's say that I feel like I'm really close to 15 flat. I'm gonna change it to 15 flat, and then my target power is 368. My target power is 3-minute Ks. It's about 72 seconds per lap for a 400-meter track. So I know that's still kind of within my wheelhouse there. Now let's say I want to switch it back to power. Yeah.
So call out the so the bar, so underneath the power number.
Yeah.
So you have your like gray, green, and red.
Yeah.
So the green area is what we feel is a comfortable estimate, right?
Yeah.
It should be within your range or doable. And then like obviously red is kind of extreme, kind of outside your range, and gray is kind of very, very easy. Not very easy, but it should be very doable.
It is well within the considerations and the limits.
Mm-hmm.
But we can see anytime we sort of go outside this as well, we can press use suggested and it'll bump us right back there. So, and then I'll just press calculate again. It'll bump me back to 1512. And now let's say, okay, 370, this is right at the edge. So, 1453, we saw by the use suggested here that plus or minus 19 seconds is going to give us this kind of window here, pretty much. But yeah, 1512, I could just be confident that I could sneak right under 15 flat. Let's say now I want to go back and target some of my historic personal bests. And let's say 1426, change it to a road. I'm going to race in Columbus, Ohio at 700 feet altitude. Race temperature that day was pretty nice, 65. Keep it at 70% humidity because Ohio is a little humid. I'd have to go, and then I'll change this back here. 1424. So I'd have to go like well above my ability right now. So I'm not in PR shape necessarily for the 5K. Why don't you toss another scenario at me, Tom?
What would you have to do? So that was your PR in Columbus.
Yep.
Are there ways of making that easier? So running it at sea level, running at what temperature would you have to have? Like, are there ways to make it more doable?
To make it more doable, yeah, that's great. So let's just say 1424. So I'll go to 0 feet. Change this back to 1424. Still well outside. So maybe I'll change this to 45 degrees. Something around there, and then I'll change the racing at humidity to like 20%, which is totally not realistic, but this might be slightly more believable here. Still outside my wheelhouse. And then still using suggested in these conditions. 1507 is pretty much still that target there. So now let's say I decide to go up to 10,000 feet here. I decide to go to Leadville, I think is at around 10,000 feet, something like that here. And then I'll just calculate. I'll be sucking air at 10,000 feet. And let's say it usually is pretty chilly up there though, right? It's usually maybe 35 degrees and 20% humidity. So I actually get a little bit of a performance knock there as well. So I'd be really happy with the 1734 5K at
10,000 feet. Yeah. So we'll have to go find a track in Leadville.
Let's see if anything does change when I change it to a track. No, keeps it right about the same. So super cool. I want to do one scenario that I had a lot of fun doing the other day. 42.2K on the road. Let's just see what this example says. So this says 255.23, but I want to know what it would take for me to go to the Berlin Marathon.
Yeah.
Let's load in that course. This is super fun here. I want to know my target time if I had to run 2:01:38 for a brand new world record. Do you think this would be just a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, Tom?
Probably, although I believe in you. But
thank you. So this is actually right around my 5K PR wattage. So it's a little bit above my 5K PR wattage. But to break the official world record at normal, sort of normal Berlin conditions, I would have to output here, and I'll just change the considerations again. 1, 38, calculate. And I'd still have to run, 383.
So you would just have to essentially do 5K for 8.5 times.
Yeah. That's it. That's pretty much it. But this is super cool. So the next sort of feature that we're talking about here is using the courses, the verified courses, at least right now on PowerCenter. So let's go look at the New York City Marathon. It's giving my ability coming down from altitude. Again, the course surface gets locked, the distance gets locked, the racing at elevation gets locked. The temperature, we let it be variable because you could have random weather pop in the week of that weekend leading into the race. The super cool thing that I like here is keeping the power flat. We see how pace responds based on the terrain. So the uphills, the downhills, inclines, declines, we just get to see how, if you were trying to follow a set like pace per mile, you would be wildly exceeding effort going up hills trying to keep that. You'd be pretty much slamming on the brakes going downhill. But power really, like Tom mentioned, is sort of that objective measure there. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I do think this is super interesting in terms of if you could run the perfect race and keep your power totally steady.
Yep.
Just how much your pace can vary along the way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Other courses we have right now, like I mentioned, it's just a handful. We have Berlin, Boston, Columbus, Frankfurt, Houston, London, LA, New York City half, New York City full, the Tokyo Marathon. So if you've ever wondered, what would it be like, maybe you're not at the position right now to qualify for Boston, but you really want to see how you'd perform at Boston, just load up the Boston Marathon there, press calculate and see your target time right now. So it's very, very cool, very, very handy just to do some of those checks. The other sort of thing is that if you have a loop or terrain near you that mimics these courses, you can go out with a specific target power in mind for that course. So it is one thing to train for the complete optimal scenario, right? So my optimal scenario is 231.08, so that's right around 543 per mile. It's something like that. Target power 311, but still, if I load up Boston Marathon, my speed will be a little bit lower overall. My power will be right about the same, but definitely something to keep in mind there for the different course considerations. But this helps illustrate just how tough or how easy some courses are too. So the London Marathon is a little bit more of a flat course. My time would be a little bit faster there. My target power could hold 1 watt more estimate. So pretty cool analysis tool here. So very, very quick and easy to come up with custom scenarios and just play around with the data there. Tom, what other comments do you have about this?
I don't know. I think it's fun to see what's a fast marathon versus a slower marathon, and kind of see how you would perform across those different courses.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to translate that to your own ability, right? You hear it's a fast marathon, but what does that mean compared to a flat race, versus a race that has net gain?
Totally.
So I think that's interesting to play around with.
Totally. Cool. Let's take a couple questions here. Question from Marco. Thanks for the cool feature. Would it be possible in the future to load custom GPX routes like trail or mountain courses, and the power and time will be calculated on the custom route? So I might be misinterpreting this, but this is something that you can do right now.
So right now we only support uploading a fit file.
Oh, a fit file. Oh, okay,
yes.
okay. Yeah. So what we do recommend, and what we had kind of talked through on Wednesday, was if you have a route that you really want to know, go run that with Stryd. You can run it easy. You can run, maybe the first half of it or something like that, and you can at least get some sort of projection there. Load it as a custom course. and then be able to look at that analysis and data. So I actually did upload a custom course here. So I go to my personal courses. I have Boulder a bit extra. So I did the Boulder course, which is a local 10K here. I can see my target time for the 6.4 mile course, my target wattage, which is right at my threshold, funnily enough. But that's definitely a use case. We're definitely hearing people request that, but for right now, we definitely recommend go run it with Stryd, upload that fit file, and then we'll be able to have that in the system. Next question here is, does the Stryd sensor collect temperature itself, or is that something automatically looked up from other sources and automatically associated with the workout data? Tom, I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
So currently, the temperature and humidity data is based on the location of your run. So we'll store kind of the average temp and average humidity for your run, and then so use that across all your data to calculate the average.
Yep. And so the other thing, Stryd does collect that temperature and humidity for the accurate air resistance right now. That is absolutely something that we're doing. But for these, this data collection here, we're associating that workout just with the weather data. So cool. Tom, any other features that we want to step through? Do I maybe want to upload the same course?
How do I upload a course?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. So first, I'm going to remove the course. We're going to do this slightly backwards. So I had Boulder a bit extra. I'm going to delete this course. Yes, delete course.
Now I'll just reverse your video and add it back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Easy as that. Yep. So on Memorial Day, I went out and I ran the Boulder course. It was a great time. I got lost a little bit. I tacked on, as we can see right around this section here. I ended up tacking on a little bit more. I made a wrong turn basically up here. But I'm going to download this. It's going to have a fit file right here. And then I'm going to go back to tools. I'm going to go to select course, upload course. So from here, I can drag it right there. I love being able to drag it to a box because I hate, going and looking up and looking through the millions of fit files that I have stored in my computer. So of course,
that's a very runner specific problem.
It is. Well, it's a Stryd runner specific problem, I feel like. So Boulder, I like calling it a bit extra. Surface type, road, create my course, select course, personal, Boulder a bit extra. Would you look at that? 3630 for 329 watts. It's beautiful. That's how you upload a course. If you do want to remove it again, you go to settings, go to courses. I can also add a course here, and then I can edit it or delete it here. So pretty good use case there, I think. For me specifically, the Boulder, when it hopefully returns to action next year, it's definitely something I want to have a very good idea of my performance, my ability to perform there. So I will have, this course generally loaded up. I'll maybe potentially go out and run it easy again, or I'll look back at another past race I had there, and I'll upload that course, and I'll be able to target a very specific wattage for that course, because the Boulder course, if we look at it here, it is relatively rolling. It has some sharp uphills, sharp downhills with a killer finish right here. You're running up to the CU Stadium. So you run uphill, you run downhill, and then you run flat for the last little bit. So very, very hard finish there, but we can see how I can really practice, running hard on some of these downhills, practicing that pace while maintaining that power. But then also early on, I can practice a little bit of patience over rolling hills, and I can really practice that course. So tons and tons of good uses here. I believe that was all the questions for now. Tom, any other feedback before we wrap up here?
No, I think people should just play around with this and kind of see how it can help them, how it can motivate them, how it can just entertain them. I I think it's a pretty fun tool just to kind of see where you're at as a runner.
Absolutely. I have had so much fun using this. Just it works not only as a fun feature, but a practical feature as well. So you ask yourself a question of, man, I'd really like to know what 5K shape I'm in right now. I want to go do a time trial, but I just don't know where I'm at. So we did have certain percentages you could multiply your critical power by. But in the past, if you had done a critical power test and you didn't feel super confident in that test result, AutoCP kind of answered that question a little bit more than just doing a standard critical power test. And then you say, oh, I want to know what kind of shape I'm in. Now this is that answer to that. We're really just trying to listen and improve that experience. And we're really confident that this is going to be not only useful, but a lot of fun. It is very, very fun just interacting with your data and seeing how all those personal projections are based on your data and stuff. So very, very exciting. I think that wraps it up. Tom, thanks so much for coming on and doing that demo. I feel like that was much better than any presentation I could have given with some boring old screenshots. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up. We'll be back with another episode of the Stryd for the Love of Running webinar series. For now, we'll see you later. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.